In The Last Jedi, when Kylo Ren killed Snoke, it looked like things were about to take an unexpected turn for the better, as Ben Solo returned to the light and joined Rey to redeem himself for the mistakes he had made. And in my opinion, this would have been a much better way to take the story, and likely would have fixed a lot of the problems people had with this movie, because it would have drastically changed the entire third act of the film, which is where a lot of the complaints come from. But unfortunately, after taking out the Praetorian Guards together, Kylo refused to join Rey, instead offering her his hand, pleading with her to join him in commanding the First Order. So the question for today's video is, why didn't Kylo join Rey in that moment? Ever since The Force Awakens, where Kylo is speaking to Darth Vader's mask, it was made very clear that we were dealing with a conflicted character, and the writers of all three films continued to build on that theme, as Ben Solo's conflict continued to grow as the story progressed. And just before the throne room scene where Kylo killed Snoke, Luke finally told the truth about what happened on the night Ben Solo turned to the dark side. And in this scene, we learn that Ben's fall was actually not decided by him, as he awakens to his uncle standing over him with his lightsaber ignited, ready to kill him. And this is the scene that really begins to open the door for Ben Solo's redemption. But now we find ourselves in this pretty confusing scene where Kylo destroys Snoke in favor of Rey, only to deny her a moment later. This man, who is clearly consumed by extreme loneliness, still feels like he can't return to his family for some reason, even after Rey learns the truth about his past, and assures him that she will help him make things right. The path seemed very clear, but something still held him back. And I'm going to break down Ben's feelings on this whole decision right now by analyzing the character's journey to this point in both of the first two movies, as well as the literature that ties it all together. So in order to understand his motives, we must understand what got him to this point in the first place. We know that Ben was deceived by the Emperor and by Snoke from the time he was born, and quite possibly even before that. And although he was already certainly very conflicted, Luke's failure is what forced him to the dark side. Luke's attempt to kill him confirms what Snoke and Palpatine had been telling him his entire life. That his family does not love him, that he is viewed differently, that he is a bad apple, a failure. And so now that his uncle has chased him away, Snoke is his only choice. The Rise of Kylo Ren comic also reveals that Ben Solo was not responsible for the burning of the Jedi Temple. He also didn't kill the students at the temple. In fact, he actually attempted to save them. He was then chased off-world by a group of students who had recently returned to the planet, eventually joined the Knights of Ren, and then did accidentally kill one of his fellow Padawans while defending himself after they continued to chase him. But none of this really matters anymore. From Ben's point of view, the truth cannot set him free, and that mentality sticks with him all the way to this moment in The Last Jedi. No matter what really happened on that night, Ben believes that the galaxy's perception of him is too much for him to overcome, and that he would never be accepted. And now, of course, at this point, he has also regretfully killed his father as well as Lor San Tekka in his quest to locate Luke Skywalker. And regardless of his motives for those actions, and who possessed him to believe that he needed to kill his father, their blood was on his hands. And for him, that was simply too much to overcome. The truth is that all of this was happening so quickly that Kylo never had time to sit down and process any of it. He goes from killing his father in The Force Awakens and dealing with the conflict that came with that, to sustaining the injury from Rey, to being belittled by Snoke, to then deciding he was going to save Rey and kill Snoke, all in a matter of a few days at the most, while also believing that his mother has now been killed as well. There was no time for him to consider how all of this was going to play out beforehand. In fact, in the elevator scene before Kylo and Rey enter the throne room, Kylo knows he's going to save Rey, but even then, he still has no idea how he's going to do it or where things are going to go from there. This all happens on the fly, and we can see the frustration that comes from that, as he assumes the role of Supreme Leader while acting like a dysfunctional teenager when confronted by his uncle on Crate. And that is a perfect representation of how he felt on the inside, as he is reminded of all the pain he has experienced, which he blames directly on Luke Skywalker. So it's not that Ben didn't want to return to the light in that moment. He really did want to join Rey, and I don't think it would have really mattered to him if that meant him coming back to the light if he could. But the fact of the matter was, he simply did not feel that was an option. Whether he was right about that or not is irrelevant, because this is all about why he did the things he did. And in Ben's mind, darkness was the only choice he had after being betrayed by Luke. There was no way anyone in the galaxy was going to believe that the Grand Master of the Jedi Order had tried to murder him in his sleep. In his mind, Rey was the only one who still had a choice. Even if he would have had time to consider his options, I don't know that anything would have changed. This mentality was something that Ben had been carrying ever since his turn to the dark side. It was in fact that thought process that drove him to Snoke in the first place. So what are your guys' thoughts on this? Some of this is based on my interpretation of the movies and the books that I have read, but I really do think that this is the message the writers were trying to send, particularly with the release of the Rise of Kylo Ren comic, in which Ben's position as a victim is put on full display. If you agreed with my interpretation, or if you have anything you'd like to add, let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a thumbs up to support the channel, and may the Force be with you always.